My dad said, "You won't be at Thanksgiving this year. Your brother's new wife thinks you'd ruin the vibe." I said nothing. The next morning, when she showed up at my office and saw me, she started screaming because I was her boss. Let me back up. My name is Rachel, and I've spent the last 12 years building a career in commercial real estate development. Not the glamorous kind you see on TV, the actual grind of permitting, zoning negotiations, contractor management, and financial modeling that makes buildings appear where empty lots used to sit. I'm a senior project director at Meridian Development Group, one of the mid-sized firms that handles mixed-use properties across 3 states. My brother Tyler is 5 years younger than me. We were close growing up, but distance and life pulled us in different directions after college. He stayed in our hometown of Columbus, working in sales for a pharmaceutical distributor. I moved to Chicago for work, then Cleveland when Meridian offered me a promotion I couldn't refuse. We'd see each other at holidays, exchange texts about sports scores and family updates, maintain that comfortable sibling relationship that doesn't require constant contact but feels solid underneath. Then he met Vanessa. They'd been dating for 8 months when Dad called me on a Tuesday evening in early November. I was reviewing budget projections for a retail complex we were breaking ground on in March. "Rachel, honey, we need to talk about Thanksgiving." I could hear something strained in his voice. Dad's usually straightforward, a retired high school principal who doesn't dance around topics. "What about it?" "I already booked the time off work." "Well, that's the thing." He paused. "Tyler and Vanessa got engaged last weekend." "That's great." I didn't know he was planning to propose. "Yeah, it was kind of sudden. Anyway, Vanessa's going to be at Thanksgiving obviously, and she's been talking with Tyler about family dynamics and, look, this is awkward, but she thinks having you there would ruin the vibe. She wants it to be just the immediate family who she's comfortable with right now." I set down my pen. "I am immediate family." "I know, sweetheart." I told Tyler this was ridiculous, but he's really wrapped up in making Vanessa happy, and she's insisting. "She says you intimidate her, that you're too successful and it makes her feel judged." "I've met her twice. We barely spoke." "I know. Your mother and I are upset about this, but Tyler's asking us to just go along with it this one time to keep the peace. He promises it won't be permanent." The thing that struck me wasn't anger. It was the calculated nature of it. Vanessa had managed to position herself as the victim of some imaginary slight, gotten my brother to champion her cause, and manipulated my parents into accepting an absurd premise, all within 8 months of entering our family. "Rachel? Say something. I hope you all have a nice Thanksgiving." "Don't be like that. We can do a separate dinner with you the weekend after." "Sure, Dad." I hung up and sat in my office for 20 minutes, watching the city lights flicker through my window. Then I went back to work. The next morning, I arrived at Meridian's Cleveland office at 7:30, same as always. We had a team meeting scheduled for 9 to discuss the new hire starting today, an administrative coordinator position we'd been trying to fill for 6 weeks. The role involved managing schedules, handling correspondence, coordinating between our field teams and the office, tracking project documentation. Basic stuff, but essential. We'd finally found someone with relevant experience who could start immediately. I was in the conference room reviewing the onboarding agenda when our HR manager, Patricia, walked in with a young woman in her mid-20s. She was petite, dressed in business casual, wearing an anxious smile. Patricia began the introduction. "Rachel, this is our new administrative coordinator, Vanessa Morris. Vanessa, this is Rachel Chen, our senior project director. You'll be supporting her team primarily." Vanessa's face went white. Then red. Then white again. "No," she said. Patricia blinked. "I'm sorry?" No. Vanessa's voice climbed. "This is Tyler's sister. She can't be here." "You know each other?" Patricia looked between us. I kept my expression neutral. "Vanessa is engaged to my brother. I wasn't aware she'd applied here." "This isn't possible." Vanessa's hands were shaking. "I can't work for her. She hates me." "I don't hate you," I said calmly. "We've barely spoken." "Then why are you trying to ruin my life?" Patricia raised her hands. "Let's all take a breath. Vanessa, why don't we step into my office for a moment? She's going to sabotage me. She's going to make sure I fail because she's jealous that Tyler chose me." The thing about office buildings is that sound carries. We had 17 people working on this floor, and I could see heads turning in cubicles, conversations stopping. I maintained my composure. "Vanessa, I understand this is surprising. Maybe we should discuss this privately. You think you're so much better than everyone. Tyler told me you look down on him, on our whole family. You've always been the perfect daughter with your perfect career, and now you're going to lord it over me every single day. This was actually impressive. She'd constructed an entire narrative about me without any evidence, convinced herself it was true, and was now having a public breakdown based on her own fabrication. Patricia was a 20-year HR veteran who had seen everything. Vanessa, I need you to come with me right now, or I'll have to ask you to leave the building. Fine. I'll leave. I don't want to work in the same building as someone who hates her own family. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the elevator. Patricia followed, trying to de-escalate. I stayed in the conference room, aware that every eye in the office was on me. My phone buzzed. Tyler. What did you do to Vanessa? I stepped into my private office and closed the door. I showed up to work. She's the one who started screaming. She's hysterical. She says you got her hired just so you could fire her and humiliate her. I didn't know she applied. HR handles all the initial screening and interviews. I only review final candidates, and I was traveling during that phase. I saw her name on the new hire list yesterday but didn't make the connection because she goes by her middle name socially. Don't lie to me. I'm not lying. Check with the company. They have documentation of the entire hiring process. She says you've always hated her, that you think she's not good enough for me. Tyler, I met her at your birthday dinner in August and at that barbecue in September. We exchanged maybe 20 sentences total. I don't have enough information to hate her. Then why did Dad say you were upset about Thanksgiving? I paused. Did Vanessa tell you to uninvite me? She just expressed that she felt uncomfortable. She's trying to fit into the family, and you make her feel like she's being judged. By existing? By acting superior. I could have argued. I could have pointed out the obvious manipulation, the performative victimhood, the escalating demands. But I recognized something in my brother's voice. He'd already chosen his side. I hope the wedding planning goes well. Congratulations again. I hung up before he could respond. Patricia knocked on my door an hour later. We need to discuss what happened. Of course. She sat down, looking tired. Vanessa submitted her resignation effective immediately. She's claiming hostile work environment, but since she quit during her first day before completing any work, we're processing it as a withdrawal from employment. Her behavior was documented by multiple witnesses. I wasn't planning to treat her any differently than any other team member. I believe you. I've worked with you for 7 years, Rachel. You're one of the most professional people in this company. She rubbed her temples. But this is going to be complicated. She's making statements to other employees on her way out, and we need to protect both you and the firm from any potential fallout. What kind of statements? That you're vindictive, that you manipulated the hiring process, that you have a pattern of targeting people you dislike. All completely unsubstantiated, but she's loud and dramatic about it. What do you need from me? Written statement about your relationship with her, timeline of when you learned about the hire, confirmation that you'll cooperate with any internal review we conduct. Done. She stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. Thank you. The rest of the day was surreal. I worked through lunch, finished 2 budget reviews, had a conference call with contractors in Pittsburgh. Normal tasks that felt like performance art while people whispered in the hallways. My phone rang at 6. Mom. Rachel, what happened today? Did Tyler call you? He's furious. Vanessa came home crying, saying you created a hostile environment and forced her to quit. She started screaming at me in front of the entire office because I'm her supervisor. Why didn't you tell us she was working for you? I didn't know until this morning. HR handles hiring for coordinator positions. I review final candidates, but I was in Pittsburgh during those interviews. Mom was quiet for a moment. Tyler says you've always looked down on him. Has he given any examples? He says you make him feel inferior. By having a career? Don't be smart, Rachel. This is serious. Vanessa is going to be part of our family, and you need to figure out how to get along with her. She got me uninvited from Thanksgiving. That was a misunderstanding. It was deliberate, Mom. She's manipulating all of you, and you're letting it happen. She's just sensitive. Some people need more reassurance than others. I recognized the futility of this conversation. My mother, a retired nurse who prided herself on empathy and peacekeeping, had been thoroughly convinced that I was the problem. I have to go. I have work to finish. We'll talk about this at Christmas. If I'm invited? I hung up and stared at my computer screen, the budget spreadsheet blurring. This was the thing about gaslighting, it didn't require conspiracy. It just required one person willing to distort reality and several others willing to accept that distortion because confronting it was uncomfortable. Update 1. 3 weeks passed. I didn't hear from my family except for a brief text from Dad saying he hoped I was doing well. I focused on work, which was demanding enough to occupy my mind. The retail complex was hitting its stride, we'd broken ground on a mixed-use property in Akron, and I was managing a team of 8 across 3 active projects. Patricia called me into her office on a Monday morning in early December. We received a demand letter from an attorney representing Vanessa Morris. I set down my coffee. For what? Constructive dismissal, hostile work environment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and defamation. She's asking for $200,000 in damages. Based on what evidence? Her testimony about feeling targeted and intimidated. She claims you used your position to create an intolerable workplace specifically because of your personal relationship. She was here for 90 minutes. She spent most of that time screaming. I know. Our attorney is handling the response. The good news is we have documentation, witnesses, and a clear record. The bad news is this is going to be a process. I nodded slowly. Is this going to affect my position here? Patricia's expression softened. No. Mark already met with the executive team, and everyone agrees you've done nothing wrong. But I want you to be prepared, this might get uglier before it's resolved. Mark was our CEO, a pragmatic man in his 50s who'd built Meridian from a 3-person operation into a regional presence. He called me that afternoon. Rachel, I want you to know we're backing you completely on this. Patricia showed me the security footage and witness statements. This is a frivolous claim, and we're going to fight it. I appreciate that. However, I need to make you aware, Vanessa's attorney copied your brother on the demand letter. They're positioning this as a family dispute that spilled into the workplace. Of course they are. How much damage can she do to your personal relationships? I considered this. My brother's already convinced I'm the villain. My parents are trying to stay neutral, which functionally means siding with her. I don't have much left to lose there. I'm sorry to hear that. It's clarifying, actually. I'm seeing who people really are when given the option to choose comfort over truth. That evening, Tyler called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. You're being sued by my fiancé, and you don't even have the decency to apologize? For what, specifically? For sabotaging her career. For making her so miserable she had a panic attack. Tyler, she screamed at me in front of the entire office because she didn't like that I was her supervisor. That's not sabotage. That's consequences. You've always been jealous of me, of anyone who finds happiness. This was fascinating. What have I done that demonstrates jealousy? You moved away. You barely visit. You act like our hometown isn't good enough for you. I moved for work. I visit when I'm invited. And I've never said anything negative about Columbus. It's not what you say. It's how you make people feel. So I'm responsible for other people's insecurities? See? That right there. That condescending attitude. Tyler, I love you. You're my brother. But Vanessa is lying to you, and you're choosing to believe her because it's easier than acknowledging you're being manipulated. Don't contact me again until you're ready to apologize to both of us. He hung up. I sat in my apartment, a 1-bedroom with decent light and a view of Lake Erie, and thought about family. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are, who we're supposed to be. How easily those stories can be rewritten by someone willing to play victim convincingly enough. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa. I know you think you're smart, but you're not. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you really are. Tyler's already choosing me over you. Your parents will too. You're going to end up alone because you're too proud to admit you're wrong. I screenshotted the message and forwarded it to Patricia and our attorney. Then I blocked the number and ordered takeout. The lawsuit moved slowly, which I learned was typical. Our attorney filed a motion to dismiss, arguing that Vanessa had no viable claims given her voluntary resignation and the documented evidence of her behavior. Her attorney responded with an amended complaint adding new allegations, that I'd made disparaging comments about her to other employees, that I'd accessed her personnel file inappropriately, that I'd created a pattern of harassment designed to force her out. All of it was false. All of it required proving a negative, which is nearly impossible. I provided sworn testimony, emails, calendar records showing I was traveling during key dates she claimed. Patricia testified about the hiring process and the incident. 3 colleagues who witnessed Vanessa's breakdown provided statements. In January, I got a call from Dad. Rachel, we need to talk about Christmas. Christmas was 3 weeks ago. I know. I'm calling about next Christmas, and Easter, and basically all future family events. Tyler and Vanessa want a commitment that you won't be there. A commitment. They're saying they can't be around you, that it's too toxic. And your mother and I talked about it, and we think maybe it's best if we have separate celebrations. We'll do holidays with Tyler and Vanessa, and we can see you at other times. I was standing in my kitchen, looking at the calendar on my refrigerator. I'd marked my birthday, March 14th, with a star, a habit from childhood. So I'm permanently uninvited from family events. It's not like that. What is it like? It's about keeping the peace. Vanessa's pregnant, Rachel. We're going to have a grandchild. We need to prioritize that relationship. The information landed like ice water. She's pregnant. 10 weeks. Tyler wanted to tell you himself, but given everything happening, he asked me to mention it. Congratulations. Don't be cold. What do you want from me, Dad? You're telling me I'm excluded from my family because someone you've known for less than a year has decided I'm the problem. You're accepting her version of reality without question. What response would satisfy you? Some humility would be nice. Some recognition that your actions have consequences. My action was existing in a workplace where she applied for a job. It's more than that, and you know it. You've always had this attitude. I have to go. I hung up and stared at the phone. Then I called my attorney. Daniel, I want to countersue. For what? Defamation, abusive process, intentional interference with familial relationships. Whatever applies. Rachel, I understand you're angry, but countersuing might escalate. She sent me threatening messages. She's making false allegations that she knows are false. She's systematically isolating me from my family. I'm not going to just absorb this. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Let me research the options and get back to you. 2 days later, we filed a counterclaim. Defamation, malicious prosecution, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, asking for compensatory and punitive damages. Tyler's response came via email, not phone call. You're suing my pregnant fiancé. You're officially dead to me. I didn't respond. Update 2. The thing about litigation is that it forces documentation. Every claim requires evidence. Every allegation needs support. And when someone has built their entire position on fabrication, the discovery process becomes very revealing. In March, Vanessa's attorney provided their evidence package. It included screenshots of text messages allegedly from me, except the phone number didn't match mine and the metadata showed they'd been created using an app designed for fake text generators. A statement from a former colleague of mine claiming I had a pattern of targeting employees I disliked, except this person had never worked at Meridian and a background check revealed they were Vanessa's cousin. Medical records showing she'd been treated for anxiety and stress, which her doctor attributed to workplace harassment, except the dates were before she'd ever applied to Meridian. Our attorney filed a motion for sanctions, arguing that Vanessa and her counsel had knowingly submitted false evidence. The judge scheduled a hearing. I sat in the courtroom on a Tuesday morning in late March, wearing a navy suit and minimal jewelry. Vanessa was across the aisle with Tyler, who hadn't looked at me once. She was showing now, wearing a flowing dress that emphasized her pregnancy. The judge reviewed the evidence, asked pointed questions about the text message metadata and the former colleague who couldn't be verified. Vanessa's attorney stumbled through explanations that became increasingly implausible. Ms. Morris, the judge said, did you create these text messages yourself? No, Your Honor. Rachel must have sent them from a different number. The metadata shows these were created using a fabrication application 3 weeks after you filed your complaint. That's impossible. The forensic analysis is quite clear. The judge looked at Vanessa's attorney. Counselor, you have a duty to investigate the veracity of evidence before presenting it to this court. This appears to be a significant failure of that duty. Your Honor, we relied on our client's representations. Your client's representations included a witness who doesn't exist and medical records that predate the alleged harassment. This isn't a minor oversight. The hearing lasted 90 minutes. At the end, the judge granted our motion for sanctions, dismissed Vanessa's claims with prejudice, and ordered her to pay our attorney's fees and costs. Tyler helped Vanessa out of the courtroom. She was crying. He still wouldn't look at me. I went back to work. The sanctions decision was public record. Within a week, a journalist from a Cleveland business publication called me for comment on a story about frivolous employment litigation. I declined, but Patricia agreed to provide a statement about the importance of documentation and due process. The article ran online with a headline, "When Family Drama Meets Workplace Litigation, a Cautionary Tale." It didn't name Vanessa directly but included enough details that anyone searching court records could identify the case. My phone rang that evening. "Mom, did you have to talk to the press?" "I didn't. Our company provided a statement about legal protections for employers." Tyler's devastated. Vanessa's humiliated. People are talking about them. She filed a frivolous lawsuit with false evidence. These are natural consequences. She made a mistake. She was emotional and scared and pregnant. She fabricated evidence, Mom. She tried to destroy my career and reputation because I had the audacity to be her supervisor. That's not a mistake born of emotion. That's calculated malice. She's going to be the mother of my grandchild. And that means she's immune from consequences? Mom's voice cracked. Why can't you just let this go? Why does winning matter more than family? I didn't win. I defended myself against false accusations. There's a difference. Your father and I are worried about the baby. All this stress, maybe she should have considered that before filing a lawsuit based on lies. Rachel, please. For us, for your brother, for that baby, can you just apologize? Say you misunderstood, that you could have handled things better. Give them something to move forward with. I thought about this. About the architecture of peace in families, how it's usually built on someone's capitulation. Someone has to absorb the unfairness, smooth the rough edges, pretend the injury never happened. No. No? I won't apologize for something I didn't do. I won't validate a false narrative to make other people comfortable. And I won't teach my future niece or nephew that lying and manipulation are acceptable strategies for getting what you want. Then we can't have a relationship with you. Tyler's made that clear. I understand. Rachel, I love you, Mom. But I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep other people warm. If that means I'm not part of the family anymore, I'll accept it. I won't like it, but I'll accept it. She hung up without saying goodbye. In April, I got an email from Tyler. No greeting, no signature. Vanessa had a miscarriage. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I called Daniel. Tyler just sent me an email blaming me for Vanessa's miscarriage. Forward it to me. Document everything. I'm not going to sue him. He's my brother, and he's grieving. I understand, but we need records in case this escalates further. I forwarded the email and then sat in my office with the door closed, crying for the first time since this entire situation began. Not for myself, but for that baby who would never be born. For my brother, who was in pain and couldn't see that he'd been manipulated into isolation. For my parents, who'd chosen enabling comfort over uncomfortable truth. I sent Tyler a response. I'm sorry for your loss. I mean that sincerely. Whatever else has happened between us, I never wanted you to experience this kind of pain. He didn't reply. May brought depositions for the counterclaim. Vanessa's attorney tried to negotiate a settlement, they'd drop everything, no payment, mutual releases. Daniel advised accepting it. You've already won the important victory. The counterclaim is about principle, but it's going to cost time and money to pursue. What's the realistic outcome if we go forward? Best case, you get a judgment for attorney's fees and maybe nominal damages. She probably doesn't have significant assets to collect against. Worst case, a jury feels sympathetic to a woman who had a miscarriage and awards nothing. I thought about what I wanted. Justice? Vindication? Some acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong? Accept the settlement, I said. I'm tired. The case closed in June. Mutual releases, no admission of liability, confidential terms. From a legal standpoint, it was over. From a personal standpoint, I was alone. I hadn't spoken to my parents in 3 months. Tyler hadn't responded to any messages. I'd been quietly removed from the family group chat. Work became my focus. The retail complex opened in July, on schedule and under budget. We broke ground on a residential tower in Cleveland Heights. I got promoted to vice president of development, with a salary increase and equity stake in the firm. On my birthday, my 35th, I went to dinner alone at a small Italian restaurant near my apartment. The server brought me tiramisu with a candle in it, a kind gesture that made me tear up. I thought about families. How we're taught they're unconditional, but that's not true. Every relationship has conditions, spoken or unspoken. The question is whether those conditions are reasonable. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Patricia Chen. I got your number from Meridian's directory. I'm your father's cousin, second or third, something like that. We met at a reunion maybe 20 years ago. Your dad mentioned you were having some family trouble, and I wanted to reach out. I went through something similar with my family, chose career over proximity, got labeled as cold and uncaring. It's lonely, but it does get better. The family you choose matters more than the one you're born into. Hang in there. I saved the number and replied with thanks. Small kindnesses from unexpected places. Update 3, final. It's been 18 months since that first phone call from Dad about Thanksgiving. I'm writing this because I've received messages from people who followed the court case or heard versions of the story through workplace channels, asking what happened, whether I reconciled with my family, whether there was some neat resolution. There wasn't. Tyler and Vanessa got married in September, a small ceremony I learned about through a mutual friend's social media. My parents attended. I wasn't invited, which I expected. I've seen Dad once since then, a chance encounter at a restaurant in Columbus when I was there for a business meeting. He was awkward, asked how I was doing, told me Tyler and Vanessa were working through things. I kept it brief and cordial. He didn't invite me to reconnect. Mom sends occasional text messages, usually forwarded inspirational quotes about forgiveness and family. I read them and don't respond. I'm not angry anymore, but I'm also not interested in performing reconciliation for other people's comfort. The hardest part wasn't losing them. It was accepting that they were willing to lose me. But here's what I've learned: when someone shows you they value their comfort over your dignity, believe them. When a system, whether it's a family or workplace or any other structure, requires you to accept mistreatment to maintain stability, that system is broken. I built something better. I have friends who've become family, Patricia Chen, and I have coffee monthly, and she's become a mentor in navigating complicated family dynamics. My team at work throws me a birthday party every year, complete with terrible homemade cake. I volunteer with a nonprofit that helps women in career transitions, and I find purpose in sharing lessons from my own experience. Last month, I got an email from Vanessa. Subject line: I'm sorry. The message was long, explaining that she'd been in therapy, that she'd recognized patterns in her behavior, that she'd been intimidated by me and lashed out defensively. She said she'd told Tyler the truth about everything: the lawsuit, the fabricated evidence, the manipulation. She said she understood if I couldn't forgive her, but she wanted to acknowledge the harm she'd caused. I read it 3 times. Then I replied, "Thank you for the apology. I hope therapy continues to help you. I don't think we'll have a relationship, but I appreciate you taking accountability." She responded asking if we could meet for coffee. I declined. Tyler hasn't reached out. I don't expect him to. Some bridges, once burned, leave a scar too wide to cross. My parents sent a Christmas card this year with a photo of them and Tyler. Not Tyler and Vanessa, just Tyler. I noticed that. I don't know what it means, if anything. I sent a card back with a photo of me at the ribbon cutting for our Cleveland Heights residential tower. In it, I'm wearing a hard hat and smiling. I look successful. I look happy. I am both those things, most days. The narrative I was taught growing up was that family is everything, that you sacrifice for them unconditionally, that blood matters above all else. But that narrative only works if everyone agrees to basic terms: honesty, respect, reciprocal care. When someone violates those terms repeatedly, when they lie and manipulate and demand that you accept their version of reality, you have 2 choices. You can abandon yourself to maintain the relationship, or you can maintain yourself and accept the relationship's end. I chose myself. Some people will read this and think I'm cold. That I should have tried harder, forgiven more readily, accepted my role as the problem to keep the peace. They'll say family is worth any sacrifice. I disagree. I think boundaries are love. I think self-respect is sacred. I think teaching people, even family, that their behavior has consequences is one of the most generous things you can do. I miss my brother sometimes. I miss the version of my parents who would have defended me instead of asking me to diminish myself. But I don't miss who I would have had to become to keep them. That's the trade-off nobody talks about. What you lose when you refuse to lose yourself. I'm at peace with it now. My career is thriving. I'm leading projects that will outlast all of us, buildings that will house businesses and families for generations. I have people who value me, who show up consistently, who don't require me to be smaller so they can feel bigger. Last week, I hired a new administrative coordinator. Her name is Jessica, and she's bright and capable and eager to learn. On her first day, I made sure to welcome her personally, to let her know my door was open, to establish that this was a workplace where people were treated with respect. She's doing great work. 3 months after Vanessa's apology email, something unexpected happened. I received a LinkedIn message from a woman named Miranda Holloway. She worked in marketing for a pharmaceutical company in Columbus, the same company where Tyler had been employed for years. Hi Rachel, I hope this message doesn't seem intrusive. I'm Tyler's former colleague. We worked together for about 4 years before I transferred to our Boston office. I recently heard through the grapevine about what happened with your family situation, and I felt compelled to reach out. I had my own experience with Vanessa that I think you should know about. I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. I appreciate you reaching out. What kind of experience? Her reply came within an hour, and it was long. Miranda explained that 3 years ago, before Tyler and Vanessa had met, Vanessa had dated another man in their office named Kevin. The relationship had lasted about 6 months before ending badly. According to Miranda, Vanessa had accused Kevin of harassment after he broke up with her. She'd filed complaints with HR, claiming he'd created a hostile environment and spread rumors about her personal life. The thing was, Miranda wrote, several of us knew the accusations weren't true. Kevin had documentation of everything, text messages showing she'd been pursuing him after the breakup, emails where she'd threatened to make him pay for humiliating her. HR investigated thoroughly and found her claims were unsubstantiated. She ended up resigning before they could take disciplinary action. About a year later, she was back at company events as Tyler's girlfriend. I always wondered if Tyler knew about the previous situation. I sat back in my chair, processing this. A pattern. Not a one-time reaction born of insecurity, but a repeated behavior when things didn't go her way. Did anyone ever tell Tyler about this? I asked. I tried, once. This was maybe 6 months into their relationship. I approached it carefully, said I wanted to share some context about Vanessa's history at the company. He got defensive immediately. Said people were jealous of their relationship, that Vanessa had warned him people might try to sabotage them. He stopped talking to me after that. I thanked Miranda for the information and sat with it for several days. Part of me wanted to forward it to Tyler, to say, see? This is who she is. But I knew how that would be received. I'd be the vindictive sister trying to destroy his marriage with gossip from years ago. Instead, I filed the information away. Not as ammunition, but as confirmation. Sometimes knowing you're not crazy, that your perception of reality is accurate, is enough. In late summer, I attended a commercial real estate conference in Chicago. It was a 3-day event with panels, networking sessions, and the kind of forced social interaction that usually exhausted me. But this year felt different. I was attending as a vice president, representing Meridian at a higher level than before. On the second evening, there was a reception at a rooftop venue overlooking the Chicago River. I was talking with a developer from Minneapolis about sustainable building practices when I saw someone familiar across the room. David Chen. No relation, despite the shared surname. We'd gone to graduate school together at Northwestern, both in the real estate program. We'd been close, study partners, confidants, almost something more before life pulled us to different cities. He spotted me at the same moment. His face broke into a genuine smile, and he made his way through the crowd. Rachel Chen. I heard you were killing it in Cleveland. David Chen. I heard you were running your own firm now. We fell into easy conversation, the kind that picks up as if no time has passed. He'd started a boutique development company focused on adaptive reuse projects, converting old industrial buildings into mixed-use spaces. He was based in Detroit, doing fascinating work in neighborhoods most developers ignored. Are you here with anyone? He asked after we'd caught up on professional news. Just me. Would you want to grab dinner tomorrow night? Catch up properly? I agreed without hesitation. We met at a small French restaurant in the Loop. Over coq au vin and wine that cost too much, we talked about everything, work, obviously, but also books we'd read, places we'd traveled, the ways we'd both changed since graduate school. I heard through the alumni network that you had some family trouble last year, David said carefully. I hope I'm not overstepping by mentioning it. You're not. What did you hear? Just that there was some kind of dispute involving your brother. People were speculating, but I didn't pay much attention to gossip. I gave him the abbreviated version: the Thanksgiving disinvitation, Vanessa's workplace meltdown, the lawsuit, the fabricated evidence. I kept it factual, trying not to sound bitter. David listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. That's brutal. I'm sorry you went through that. The hardest part was losing my family over it. Or having them choose to lose me, more accurately. Do you regret how you handled it? Fighting back instead of just letting it go? I considered this honestly. No. If I'd apologized, accepted blame I didn't deserve, made myself smaller to keep the peace, I'd have lost myself. At least this way, I lost people who were willing to throw me away. That's information I needed. That's a remarkably healthy perspective. It took a while to get here. For months, I kept thinking there must be something wrong with me. Why else would my whole family turn away? But I eventually realized I was asking the wrong question. The question wasn't what's wrong with me? It was what does their behavior reveal about them? David raised his glass. To asking better questions. We clinked glasses, and something shifted. The conversation moved to lighter topics, but there was an undercurrent of connection, of recognition. Two people who'd chosen difficult paths and survived them. At the end of the evening, standing outside the restaurant waiting for our separate rideshares, David said, "I'd like to stay in touch." Actually stay in touch, not LinkedIn connections we never message. I'd like that too. He pulled out his phone. What's your number? We exchanged information, and before I could overthink it, I added, Detroit's not that far from Cleveland. If you're ever in the area for a project, I'll let you know. He smiled. And if you're ever scouting locations in Detroit, I know all the best spots. My rideshare arrived first. As I got in, I looked back to see David still standing there, hands in his pockets, watching me leave. He waved. I waved back. David and I started texting regularly. Nothing romantic at first, just professional updates and articles we thought the other would find interesting. Then gradually, the conversations deepened. He told me about his divorce 3 years ago, a marriage that had ended without drama but with a quiet recognition that they'd grown into different people. I told him more about my family's situation, the complicated grief of losing people who were still alive. In October, he drove to Cleveland to tour a property he was considering for acquisition. We met for lunch, then spent the afternoon walking through the warehouse district, talking about possibilities. He saw buildings the way I did, not just as structures, but as potential, as stories waiting to be written. Come to Detroit, he said as we stood outside a particularly beautiful old factory building. I want to show you what we're doing there. Not as a consultant, just as someone who'd appreciate the work. I went the following weekend. Detroit surprised me. I'd heard the narratives about decline and abandonment, but David showed me neighborhoods in transformation, projects that honored history while creating something new. We toured his current development, a former automotive parts plant being converted into live workspaces for artists and small manufacturers. The goal is to keep the community members who've been here through the hard times, David explained as we walked through the construction site. Not displace them for wealthier newcomers. Affordable units mixed with market rate. Commercial space for existing small businesses, public areas that belong to everyone. It's remarkable. It's also a nightmare of tax credits and community board meetings and contractor delays, he laughed. But worth it. That evening, we had dinner at his loft, a converted textile factory with exposed brick and massive windows. He cooked, which surprised me. We ate pasta with homemade sauce while sitting on his balcony, watching the city lights flicker on. I'm glad you came, David said. Me too. Rachel, I need to ask something, and feel free to shut this down if I'm reading things wrong. He set down his wine glass. Is there something happening here? Between us? I met his eyes. Yes. Okay. Good. I wasn't sure if I was projecting. You weren't. What do we do about the fact that we live in different cities? Detroit is 2.5 hours from Cleveland. People commute longer than that. He smiled. True. And I'm looking at potential projects in Cleveland. There's a property near the flats I've been researching. Coincidentally, I know someone who works in Cleveland development. What a small world. We both laughed, and then the laughter faded into something else. He reached across the small table and took my hand. I should tell you up front, I'm not good at casual. I don't do undefined relationships or seeing where things go. If we do this, I want to actually do this. I don't do casual either, I said. Life's too short for ambiguity. Then we're on the same page. He squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back. By Thanksgiving, 2 years after the original disinvitation, David and I had been together for several months. We'd figured out a rhythm, alternate weekends in each other's cities, daily phone calls, shared calendars to coordinate our chaotic schedules. He invited me to spend Thanksgiving with his family in Ann Arbor. His parents, 2 sisters, their partners and children, a boisterous gathering of people who welcomed me without interrogation or judgment. David's mother, Joan, was a retired professor of sociology who asked thoughtful questions about my work and listened to the answers. His father, Robert, was a contractor who'd built houses for 40 years and wanted to hear every detail about our development projects. During dinner, Joan raised her glass. I want to thank everyone for being here. Family isn't just about shared DNA. It's about showing up, caring for each other, creating space where everyone belongs. We're grateful for all of you. Her eyes landed on me when she said it, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Acceptance without conditions. Belonging without having to diminish myself. After dinner, David and I walked through his parents' neighborhood, past houses decorated with fall wreaths and porch lights glowing warm. Your family is wonderful, I said. They like you. My mom pulled me aside earlier and said, don't mess this up. Good advice. He laughed, then grew more serious. I know today might have been hard. Thinking about your own family. It was easier than I expected. I think I finally accepted that some losses are necessary. Painful, but necessary. Have you heard from them at all? Tyler sent a Christmas card last year. That's it. My parents occasionally text generic messages. Nothing substantial. Do you think you'll ever reconcile? I thought about this as we walked. Maybe someday, if they're willing to acknowledge what actually happened. But I'm not holding my breath. And honestly, I'm building something better. A life with people who value integrity over convenience. Like me? Especially you. He stopped walking and turned to face me. Rachel, I need to tell you something. That sounds ominous. It's not. It's the opposite. He took both my hands. I'm in love with you. I have been for a while, but I wanted to wait for the right moment to say it. But standing here, after today, after seeing you with my family and seeing how you've built this life despite everything, I just need you to know. My throat tightened. I love you too. Yeah? Yeah. He pulled me into a kiss, right there on the sidewalk, under a streetlight in suburban Ann Arbor. When we broke apart, we were both smiling. Best Thanksgiving ever? He asked. Best Thanksgiving ever. I like to think I'm doing great work too, not just in developing properties, but in developing a life based on integrity rather than appeasement. It's a harder path, certainly. Lonelier in some ways, though much less lonely than it used to be. But it's mine. Built on truth, held together by self-respect, grounded in the radical notion that you can love people and still refuse to tolerate their mistreatment. My name is Rachel Chen. I'm a vice president of development at a commercial real estate firm in Cleveland. I'm good at my job. I have people I care about who care about me in return. I have a partner who sees me clearly and loves what he sees. I'm building a life that doesn't require me to apologize for existing. And this Thanksgiving, I'll be exactly where I choose to be. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. A small truth worth holding. When you find yourself erased from someone's story, remember this: you are not the villain they need you to be. You're simply the person who refused to play that role. There is profound strength in walking away from relationships that require you to betray yourself. Family, real family, doesn't ask you to be smaller. It doesn't demand you accept lies as truth or mistreatment as love. The people who are meant to be in your life will meet you with honesty and respect. The ones who aren't will teach you that some doors, once closed, lead to better rooms. Hold your boundaries tenderly. They are not walls keeping love out, they are gates letting the right love in. And know this: choosing your own dignity over someone else's comfort is not selfish. It's the truest act of self-love you can perform. You deserve people who celebrate your light, not ones who ask you to dim it. Keep shining. The right people will find their way to you, and together, you'll build something more beautiful than what you left behind.